Welcome back to Dear Diary, the Self-Love Podcast. We are back with the beautiful Lindsey Ruder for part 2 of our interview together. And I'm so excited about this. If you thought the first one was juicy, just wait until you get into this one. We talk about checking in with our bodies, shedding all of the layers, being able to show up and make small shifts into staying into our power and investing in ourselves, and talking about how it doesn't have to be this big breakthrough or this big aha, but instead these small moments where we acknowledge that we're telling these stories, and then just really allowing for integration, going deeper and deeper into an alignment and into an empowered state, sort of walking away with a clear connection to yourself and stepping into your fullest. And the importance of a self-care tool belt. I can't say enough how important self-care tools are, and so we talk a lot about that. She also shares about what her experience was wrapping up our coaching sessions together and sort of the magnitude of what she saw in our experience together and how that ripples out into the collective, into the world, into all of the lives of the beautiful souls who are doing this work. It's such a beautiful episode. I cannot wait for you to get into it. So without further ado, here she is. So we are back, day 2, part 2, with the beautiful Lindsey. I feel like we could go on forever, so we will definitely be bringing you back if you like it here. We have
sure.
so many profound things to say to one another.
It's really cozy to be in a room with you, Amanda. I'd love to come back.
Oh, I love you.
And that's good in Zoom, right? If it's cozy in here, that's an accomplishment. So kudos.
Absolutely. God bless Zoom. So I had asked you what your experience was coaching someone that came to you with such a big ask, right? Like, my safety was in question. I was feeling like I was spiraling. I was all over the place. So basically you were like, oh shit, that's pressure. Oh wait, no, it's not actually pressure. It's a chance for me to just help her guide herself, and you provide the container for that. But for the most part, it was like, well, where does she want to take this? Which I think is absolutely beautiful, because as a coach, I probably would have put pressure on myself as well, right? Like, that's conditioning on our behalfs of like wanting, or at least for me, wanting to fix things all the time, right? I have a client that comes to me and says like, my life. And I'm like, here, I'll help you fix it. Wait a minute. I'll help you show yourself how to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was super beautiful that you noted that. What was that journey like for you?
Yeah, there's a really powerful like image coming to mind for me where, when somebody feels intense, like you just described, like things like they're starting to feel like life or death. They're starting to feel like the magnitude is overwhelming. And, a lot of our normal faculties start feeling inaccessible, right? Because we're in this like survival mode. And I think I mentioned the other day how that's not uncommon for that to be the point at which someone reaches out for help from us coaches.
Yeah.
Is like, I don't know what else to do, right? And I see how that happens, and I see why. There's so many reasons why we don't reach out earlier. This is the nation of like treating the symptoms, and prevention is like, what's that mean? So it's not uncommon. And I think like when I feel that coming my way, it's easy to feel it for myself, right? Like there's this like shallow of breath, like this feels desperate. And so this image that's coming to mind for me is like a survival or life or death situation, let's say out in the wilderness. So like if I go this way, this could happen. If I go this way, like if I myself was at that junction, I do not want a bug in my ear, you know, from the helicopter or from a different place or from a different human, like in guiding me, whether to go right or left, whether to step up or shimmy down. Like I don't want that to come from somewhere else, because I'm the one standing in that place and I'm the one that's receiving all the information from my environment and ultimately from my intuition once I know how to hear that, right? So that image coming right now, it just feels striking because I feel like that's kind of my response is like, yeah, I could join you in feeling all those things, but ultimately it's like a reminder to me. I get that like automatic translation that, oh, okay, this pivotal moment is going to be one of her biggest opportunity moments, right? So it's not like the pressure is on me, the pressure's on coaching, the pressure's on the process. It's like, no, like all the things have lined up for this big opportunity. And so I know that means it's time. It's time. You're ready,
Yeah.
right? And so the gesture of investing in ourselves, you know, via coaching, or there's a lot of ways to do it, right? But when we make that gesture, like it lets the world around us and it lets the universe know I am ready. And what I didn't realize years ago is that being ready doesn't mean we know where we're going and how we're getting there. Being ready means we know we are not staying the same. It's time.
Yeah.
And I think I've shared this with you before, but I did some research back in September on literally like the root of the word crisis, because crisis was kind of a cosmic theme back in September. And, you know, crisis, like the root, when you take it back, it really is about that point at which things can no longer stay the same. And I found that so juicy and fascinating because crisis is a trigger word. Nobody wants to hear that word. And we certainly don't want to identify with being in crisis. But when we consider the fact that life will inevitably have crises, and that if we look backwards, retrospectively, we can see that it is the moment of crisis when we do pivot, we shift, right? We make the necessary changes to step into the next chapter of our being or of our lives. So, not always comfortable, not always exciting to encounter. And yet, when we step back and we are aware of the scope, the big picture around it, it's enthralling. It's what I'm here for. It's what we're here for, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's something about knowing where the authority really lies that it takes the pressure off of all the what feels like presenting external circumstances. You know, like when we feel like everything's happening to us, everything feels like life or death. Everything feels like, oh my gosh, and I'm out of control. This is out of control. But when we kind of look at it all and we're standing in our power, it's like, this might happen. This really awful thing might happen. It's true. Or I may feel this thing that I've been so afraid of feeling. I might. It's true, right? So from that empowered place, now all of a sudden everything isn't on fire and it isn't happening to us, right? So we get to choose. And as I've already said many times now, the choices, it's not about being fun, easy, light, obvious. That's not the point. If it was those things, we wouldn't reach a point of crisis and we would stay the same, right? So yeah, I think your approach was very exciting to me because you had a way of expressing yourself that showed me that you were unquestionably ready. And as a coach, as an ally of any sort, like that's the key ingredients. That is the yeast in the bread. Like we don't go anywhere without that. So seeing that takes any trepidation I might have felt, right, in a knee-jerk response, and it turns it into pure excitement, right, anticipation, curiosity. And I think that's what I brought to the calls. That's what I felt when we first started to dive in together, and honestly, still do. I
Yeah.
still feel that way about you. You know, I can't wait to witness the unfolding. Um, it's
Ugh,
beautiful.
it's
Yeah.
almost like I'm reliving the experience with you all over again, listening to you speak right now, because it was such a powerful thing of like, yes, I came ready. I knew. I knew that this was it. Like I knew this is what I needed. And I knew that this was going to be a really big season in my life, and I needed somebody by my side with me to go through it. And I I'll never forget walking through, I don't remember which call it was. Um but you were like, we could talk about the situations. It might have even been a few of the calls. We can talk about the situations if you would like, but that's not going to serve you talking about, the specific details of situations. What we can do, and it's like you had me zoom out from this place of empowerment, and it wouldn't have served me if I came to you with all of my garbage and my drama. Like, that's not the point of this. And I think that that's so important to note, is like, it really does all come back to us and what's happening for us and not to us, because we get so caught up, and it is society and whole as a whole, we get so caught up with all of the things that are happening to us.
Mm-hmm.
This is the world is in chaos. It's a really hard time for a lot of people, and a lot of people are going through a lot of hardships. And
Yeah.
it's so easy to get caught up in like, why me? Why is this happening to me?
It's true. And let's be really real about this. Like when you show up and you just said a moment ago, like bring all that garbage, right? And just bring it all. Well, like we do that. And that's fine. Like, there were moments where you had choices to make. Like I'm telling this story about all the things that are happening around me, what works and doesn't work. And I can stay in that story and I can make my choices from that place and try to manipulate things around me to be different. That is an option,
Yeah.
right? And I think that in order to be empowered, we have to feel those choices. So it's like that I can make that investment, and I can make the kind of investment which, and this is a realm, right? This is not black or white, but like a realm of self-investment, you know? And I think seeing the choices, step one, and making it for yourself is the next key ingredient there, right?
Yeah.
So like let's not mislead like our listeners. Like you're gonna bring your stuff,
Yeah.
right? It is part of you. And I think it's kind of like all those phrases about like laying it down, lay your burdens down. Like you bring it all there, we look at it together,
Mhm.
and we say what feels like a worthy investment here, and make that choice from a place that's more self-aware
Yeah.
and more connected to authentic truth, right? Values, like our deepest held values. And oftentimes we realize like, oh, this is different than I've been investing, right? There's shifts to make here. And that's the juicy stuff. And it's like so subtle sometimes, right? Like, well, well, these little shifts, right? These little like, oh, becoming more self-aware, for example, becoming more mindful. It can feel like so insignificant next to these things that feel like they're on fire in life. And that's actually something, I'd like to hear more from you about that, right? It's like it's hard sometimes to sign up for the more subtle,
Mm.
self-investing type changes,
Yeah.
right? It'd be way easier to make a big something,
Yeah.
right? That if changes a lot of things really obviously right away, and that will be some people's path. It doesn't tend to be the work that I do, and it doesn't tend to be sustainable for most people that I've had the honor of standing beside. But it does happen, right? These like spontaneous transformations. So let's go back a second. I want to ask you a question, because you said, I knew I was ready. And so we were just kind of a moment ago discerning between I'm ready, like this is not working, this isn't working, this has to change, like I'm ready, versus like I am ready to invest in myself. And you and I talk about this a lot. Like, how many people are like, yeah, my life needs to be different. Oh, are you ready to invest in the changes? No, like I don't have the money, I don't have the time, I don't have the, I don't know. Okay, you're not ready.
Yeah.
Right? You're not ready. So can you describe like how you experience that readiness?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So when I came to you, I had already made a pretty large investment in my growth and healing, and it was like, okay, well, I can't. I mean, how many people am I gonna, hire to mentor me? Like, I don't have money growing on
Mm,
trees. Like, I can't just like, and and then when I sat with it, it was like, oh wait, no, you don't have the option not to. Like, this was like a deep rooted decision inside of me of like, this is enough. I no longer want to be on my journey feeling this way, because inside of me there's so much bigness and so much depth and so much inspiration and creativity and like all the things, and I just want to have this happy life, and then this thing keeps getting in my way. And it can't just be about the thing, because, and I think you even said this, if it's this thing here and I leave this situation, it's going to pop up somewhere else in
mm,
some other way, it's going to
mhm,
manifest itself in another way. And I can't keep having that. I can't keep hitting these roadblocks. I can't keep getting in my way. And so really it was just a matter of, and I thought about it before I messaged you, of like, is this something I really want to do? Like, yes, I know I would benefit from working with her and I would love to work with her. But do I really need to take on another thing right now? I'm already doing so many things. And it was like, when at the end of the day, prior to me reaching out to you, it was like, yes, this is absolutely everything that I need, because none of it makes sense. Like, I'm already doing so much work, but I know there's something missing, and I knew that you had it. And I
mm,
knew that you saw something. I think this is a really big factor too. You saw something in me that I needed to see in myself.
mm.
That was a huge part of it too.
I love
Um,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, like when you did my intro for this interview, and I was like, oh, so nice to see ourselves through the other's eyes, because sometimes it helps us bridge our own gaps in self-awareness, self-perception.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the most powerful things about all of it, and I've spoken with you, I've shared this in my stories on Instagram and just, in various places. I always talk about these, you're right, like the big pops, right? Like the big aha, the big healing, the big like release of whatever this is. And it wasn't that. It was these little micro moments of, oh, and and oh, that's how this gets to be, and oh, I'm more powerful than that, and oh, I have compassion for myself instead of resentment and anger and rage, and like, wow, that came naturally, that came easily, and this almost feels like it's been inside of me this whole time, and why didn't you?
Mm,
So it's like all of that, all of those little moments, they feel more sustainable than if I were to have like this big pop, this big breakthrough and this big like aha moment.
mhm.
And I think I shared it with you. It feels like remembering, like I remembered who I was. You helped me step into my power, but from a really solid and strong foundation.
Mhm.
And I didn't know that that's what I needed, but it's exactly what I needed to stop this pattern cycle over and over again.
Yeah, I know you do a lot of really valuable breathwork practices and share those with your community. And what you're saying reminds me of breathwork, because it's like, we know now, like there are types of breathwork that put us in a transcendental state, right? That actually can put us in psychedelic or other states of being. And so that said, like you can go on a breathwork journey, and it can be life altering, and it can feel really really transformative in an intense way while it's happening, in the aftermath, you know. And I've done it, and it's beautiful, and I will continue to do it. But the thing is, it takes a lot of digestion and integration time.
Mm-hmm.
I can't lay down on the floor and do a powerful breathwork journey like that for 2 hours every day and keep up with the integration, at least not at this point in my journey. And I don't even know if that's what I aspire to, but I do know that I cannot. So the point, I think, is for me is like, how do I maintain? How do I start to achieve this baseline, right? Of okayness, right? I'm borrowing that word, but we're pointing at a lot of different things here, but that the breath work can allow me to go deeper, right? To have these experiences that allow me to see differently, to be differently, and to access parts of myself that I didn't have access to. So if I can do that a little bit each day, it's just like working out at the gym.
Yep.
Right? It becomes second nature, right? And our capacity grows and grows. Whereas, like I said, I don't think, the epic journey is just it's not practical to do it in that way. We talk about drugs, right? Like drugs, I'm putting in quotations here, but like a psychedelic journey, like a really big, profound one versus microdosing, both serve their purpose, right? But I think if the whole world was taking high doses of psychedelic substances every day, like, I don't even know what would be going on here, right? Right. But I do know that it doesn't feel like a sustainable thing to start tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And you talk about integration too. That's such a huge part of this journey. And it's an imperative part of this journey, because you can have all these breakthroughs and ahas and pivotal moments, but if you don't continue to discover what's underneath them and really sit with them and play with them and try them on for size and see how you can use them in your day-to-day life, well, then what's the fucking point? And so I think my time with you was like, it was just a reiteration of like, okay, this is what we're here to do. Did you follow the steps? Did you do the things? How did you feel? How did that experience feel like? And now, like, little bit by bit, as we worked together, I was coming to you like, oh girl, you'd be proud of me. I did that thing that we talked about and it worked and I wasn't triggered and it didn't turn into a whole thing, and like I feel so good. And now I'm like, I feel so inspired and I feel so creative, and like just everything feels so good from that place. And it's such an important part of this journey. It's fine to get into your power and have somebody remind you, but how do you stay there?
Yeah.
And choose to go there over and over? Because life is going to happen and things are going to happen. And my external world did not change in this time we had together. If anything, it got a little more intense during certain times. So it's so imperative to like remember to just go back there each time, in here, not out there, in here.
Yeah, alignment. Well, today is coming in imagery. This is really fun. That's not always what happens for me, but I'm okay. So if I'm painting a room in my house and I don't have a like strong preference, I haven't spent time with the color wheel. Like I'm just like, I'm not super sure. And people are like, how about this one? I'm like, oh yeah, maybe. Or like, how about this one? Like, When I take the time to get acquainted with like, what do I want to feel in this room? Right? Like, and I wait until I get that click, this color, right? And then when someone brings in another suggestion or an alternative, I can hold it up next to the one that I'm like, well, I mean, it could kind of work, but what I think it's different in this way, and I'm not sure if I want to go in that direction. Like, let's go over here instead, right? So it's like when we are tuning in, we understand, again, life's not all like peaches and cream and everything's not fantastic all the time, right? But when we're tuning in and we're coming back home over and over and over again, then when life is presenting things and in this chaos, there are things that do not match where we're at, what we're choosing, right?
Mhm.
Where we want to go, then that contrast is more obvious to us because we have something to hold it up next to,
Yeah.
right? And I think that that's important because it's like, well, authentic expression, like I'm not always really clear and have like unobstructed access to my truths all the time, right? Because just look at yourself and your moods and your energies and how much they shift in a day,
Yeah.
right? So that can get obstructed. And I think it's important that we have this program of like maintenance, if you will, where we're always coming home and we're always finding out where that baseline is and what alignment would feel like for us. Not because we expect life to always feel that way, but so that that baseline shows us. I think I said this to you the other day, like when we've strayed far away, too far away, or for too long.
Yeah.
Now we know it, we haven't normalized it day after day. Like we could normalize having no idea what colors we like.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. Just somebody pick something, right? And then next thing you know, you're living in a room that you hate.
Pepto-Bismol pink.
Oh, I did it. I did it in a bathroom once. I've had that experience. Yes.
No, it's true. And it's another, it goes back to the profound ways in which embodiment work, somatic healing, using the breath as medicine and as a tool. It's so God, it's so good. I don't even, there are no words to how fucking good it is, because you taught me, and I already knew how to check in with my body. But you were like, no, this is like, are you like, what I thought I was checking in with my body was like, oh, like I have a tummy ache, or like, oh, I have a headache. But like actually sitting with my body, maybe even in silence, and like just listening to what's there and honoring that, so that when I did show up with all of this external chaos, I had a little bit of a stronger, like solid foundation of where I was at, what I needed, what I needed to give compassion to, what I needed to give myself grace for. And it was like that for me, I'll take that with me for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And I'll just continue to get better and better and better at reading what's going on. Prior to hopping on this interview, I was like, oh, I need to cancel. This is like, my kid is driving me nuts. And I'm like, my stomach hurts, my head hurts, I'm hungry, I can't eat. I'm like, oh. And then I'm like, all right, wait, listen, what do you need? I needed some water and I needed a shower. And I'm like, something so simple. But before, I would have just came on here and been, weird. And it just like, you go through the motions and you forget to check in.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've heard you say how much you enjoy like this process, right? Like what we're doing right now. So then if I was to say to you, okay, I hear you saying you like this. Tell me what that feels like. Right. So and actually, like if we were to do that right now in this interview, like ask you to walk into your felt sense and share with us what's going on in there, like I think what we would find out is that it's not as simple as I like and I don't like.
Yeah.
And we would also find out that it's changing, it's dynamic.
Yeah.
Right. So if I asked you how you felt in your interviewer, role a couple of days ago when we started, you would have given a response. Today it might be different, right?
Absolutely.
And both are real and of consequence for you. And so this is us kind of fleshing out like what happens to us. Well, we tell a story. I like doing interviews. I like recording podcasts. That's who I am. That's what I like. Right. And then we can just keep hitting repeat on that. Right. Maybe we sign up to do more and more things and have more responsibilities, but don't pause and actually go in and see, how are we doing when we're doing this thing we say we love,
Mm.
right? Because sometimes the things we think we love are actually things that we're just trying desperately to fulfill a void that we've had inside of ourselves for a long time. And maybe something fulfilled it in the past. So we keep going back, keep going back. If I do it enough times again and again, I'll feel better again, like I did back then.
Yeah.
Right. And maybe it doesn't ever come back, that relief from that source, but we don't even notice, because we're stuck in that story of like, well, this is what I like. This is what I don't like. This is what works for me. Right. Um, it's kind of like the monkey story, the monkeys with the ladder. Yeah. I mean, there's just so many things that we don't question why we do them. And you checking in with yourself in this deeper, more intimate way is you saying, I refuse to keep living an expired life. I'm here for the updates, and I'll keep coming back as much as it takes. Right. And that is beautiful. That's what we got to do.
Yeah.
I mean, anybody out there selling a one and done, well, I say keep looking, or give it a try and let us know. Let us
Yeah.
know. Let us know who's got it figured out.
Yeah. Absolutely. And when I hear you say that, I hear so many like people pleasers listening, like, oh, well, I know I don't like it. I'm just doing it because I've always done it, or because that's what I should do, or because that's what people love me for. Like, there's so many different examples of just living in the mind, going through the motions, I've talked about this in so many podcast episodes, like letting your life just be on autopilot and not really actually checking in with like what's alive inside of you,
Yes.
and that's why I chuckle when I say, like, I thought I was good with this, because I am,
Mm-hmm.
checking in with myself, seeing what's alive inside of me. But I also had this story narrating inside of that. So, like,
Mm-hmm.
yes, I was checking in. Yes, I knew what I felt inside, but it came with a story. And you helped me like detach that story and separate myself from that
Yeah.
story. That was
Mm-hmm.
huge. We all have stories.
Yeah.
All of us.
Yeah, we have to. That's what lives in the ego, and we do need it. It
Yeah.
is part of our survival, and we're using it in a number of ways that it is really not fit to be used.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Mm.
Absolutely. So I have one more question. Well, I have a lot of questions, but one more question for now.
Hmm.
You mentioned on our last interview that we did, or not our last interview, our last session that we had, that you were getting emotional when you were doing it. Do you remember that?
Yes. Hmm.
Can I ask you to elaborate on that and what you were feeling inside of you in that moment?
Yeah, you definitely can ask me that, and I think maybe let's set this up a little bit for
Okay.
our listeners. And can you kind of create the container, like where we were at in the call and what was
Sure.
happening, and then I can
Absolutely.
chime in and elaborate
Yeah,
on my
absolutely.
perspective.
Yes. So Lindsay walked me through a beautiful, like a closing ceremony on our last call. And she walked me through this beautiful meditation prompted with a bunch of questions that I could ask myself of where I've been, where I'm going, where I want, what does it feel like? Um, and really just like what we walked through a journey of where I started and where I've grown and where we are now. And it was this beautiful reflection of, she said, do you want to take time to journal? It was like, oh my gosh, like I feel like it's landed so deep inside of me. Like, yes, I could journal, but I'm owning it now. Like I feel it from in my cells. And it was emotional for me, and I could tell she was getting emotional, and that made it even more exciting for me. Like I feel so seen by you. I felt
Mm.
so seen. I always feel seen by you, but that's such an important part of this too. um
Hmm.
yeah, so that's
Okay.
that's what we were experiencing. And yeah, she
Yeah.
mentioned that she was getting emotional. I was like, oh, I did it. This is
Yeah.
happening.
There's a lot of layers to that experience for me. And I'm not promising that they won't all bubble up right now as well. And if they do, so it will be. I I think that when somebody walks away from me and conversation, coaching context or not, and I feel like they are more resourced. So we talk about being empowered, you right? They're strong, powerful, sovereign, right? Like all these things that we throw around a lot, but like what that actually feels like when somebody walks away and they walk away with the clear connection to themselves. And what that means again is not I'm great, everything feels good all the time, and I know how to solve all these issues that are presenting in my life. That is not it,
Mm-mm.
right? It's like when we talk about these resources, I say tool belt a lot. It's another tool for your tool belt. So when you walk in, if you're a contractor and you're walking onto a job, you don't get to know ahead of time what you're walking into. That's life, right? We're here for it. Hard things are going to happen. Amazing things are going to happen. We're going to find out when they're happening most of the time, right? So there's a difference between a contractor walking into a new project or a new, structure with a tool belt full of the best tools that they've had that helped them on the last 100 jobs that they did, right? There's a difference between that and walking in with like, well, I got some tools in the truck. There's some at home. Like, I don't, I'll find them if I need them. Like, maybe I can borrow some. Like, that's a different experience.
Yeah.
And we can see, like using that example, how much more efficient energy wise. So if we just talk about like, okay, we're overwhelmed, we have fears, this is hard stuff, right? So let's set ourselves up for success. Let's get a tool belt and let's start putting some stuff in there because life's going to keep happening. Just because we choose a path of growth does not mean that everything becomes, daisies and puppies. And I think that, that we're finally acknowledging that with meditation, with mindfulness in this country, where it's like so many people are like, well, I tried, but it doesn't work. Well, how would you know if it was working? Well, I'll feel zen. Everything will just be better. And it's like, maybe if that's what's alive in you. But really, all you're really asking yourself to do is witness what is. And sometimes that's yuck, right? It's hard, it's gross, it's scary, it's all these things. And so when I can see that tool belt resourced experience in somebody standing in front of me or someone that I'm connected to, I get very, I come alive. I come alive more because I see how it's the way. It's the only path that I know, I guess. And I know that when we were on our call the other day, I have a lot of women in my field of awareness right now. And a lot of those women I've never met. They're women that are all over the world. And we did that call, like we have the largest like feminist revolution in history is happening in Iran right now, right? And it was also, Halloween, Day of the Dead time. And I'm connecting to my ancestors and I'm thinking about the plight of all the women who've walked before me. And I was in all of this. I'm feeling all of this diversity of experience that women have with being welcome to be who they are in the world, with being able to show up and just be and have that be safe and have that be a place to make a beautiful life from, right? And there's so much variation in the stories that are unfolding for women around the world. And when I see you in your power, and I know that you're wearing the tool belt and you're going to take that. I don't have to keep up with you. I don't have to follow you and stay a part of it. Like, I know you're wearing that tool belt. And that means to me that you're going to help other women, and you're going to help other people in your lives. And you're going to raise your son from that place, right? You're going to interact with the world from that place. And that gives me hope. And that makes me tap into, and this is the part where I cry, it helps me tap into the liberation that is taking place on this planet. And it allows me to be a part of it and feel this interconnection, this web that is there all the time, right? It's why we sometimes suffer and we don't have any logical reason why we suffer.
Yeah.
It's because we're connected. And there's a lot of suffering, there's a lot of oppression in the world, and we have so much healing to do. So yeah, it's just kind of like if I was watching like a Marvel movie and I'm like watching a superhero like put on their cape and fly off into the sunset, you know, it's like, I know that we're all going to be that much better off because they did, right? They're here and they're wearing the cape and they're here for it. Right.
Mm.
So I can trust that. I don't have to go with them. I don't have to watch their every move. I don't have to mimic them or make them more like me. And that's the feeling I get. That's the feeling that I was able to be kind of overwhelmed by
That's
in
beautiful.
our last call. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Felt beautiful. It still feels beautiful.
Yeah.
Um,
So many ripples from these little moments of discovery, peeling back the onion layers, coming back home to ourselves, stepping
yeah.
into the power, remembering who we are.
There's just like nothing yummier than a person who's like stepping into their fullness. And we're so terrified of it when we haven't done this before, because it's like, well, if they're different, then what can I count on? What if we're not as close anymore? What if they don't like me anymore? What if this arrangement we have doesn't work anymore? We're just so afraid of what the lack could be, the projected lack, the projected fear. And it's like, we don't understand that when we are open to what is, we can encompass so much more of life. If I don't need you to be different than you are, then I get to appreciate you so much more. And my connection to you gets to be so much more pure, right? Because I get to now not only be in my fullness, but I get to enjoy yours. I get to be a benefit from yours, instead of always being stuck in that place of like, if we just keep things how they are and we just have everything controlled and protected from anything that could come in and change it, right? It's exhausting. It's limiting, right? And it keeps people, the people we love the most, in this really limited place in our hearts, where we only see what we're okay and comfortable seeing, right? And anything else gets pushed away, ignored. Let's just smooth it over somehow because that's uncomfortable to feel, right? I need you to be where I'm comfortable with you being. And we miss out. We miss out on our people, you know, we miss out on ourselves. And it's just so beautiful when we can be more full, you know, and we have a whole lifetime to do it,
Yeah.
you know, like we're just starting, you're starting, I'm starting, like we get to be babes in this process, which is beautiful, because how many pictures in life are painted for us where it's like, if you do the things, you'll have the things and then it'll be good. And it's like, who do you know that just reached that point and they were done? It's
Mm-mm.
all good now. Nothing's going to change anymore, right? It's just an unfortunate reality to set people up for. You know, once you have the thing, it'll all just be. You know, it's like, no, let's learn to pivot. Let's wear that tool belt. Let's prepare ourselves to be malleable, to be fluid, to flow with our life, instead of resisting it and then always feeling like it's happening to us and it's not in our control. And only thing that would make it okay is control. Let's
Yeah.
move away from that model, right?
Gosh, I heard you say that, talking about control, and I'm like, wow, what a beautiful full circle moment for me. Like, aha, light bulb moment. When I first got into this journey, I knew that was the first thing I needed to give up.
Mm.
That was for me, that was the first thing that I needed to give up. Um, and I don't know if it's like roots back to like that only child syndrome or what, but it was like that need to control. And I remember acknowledging how important that was going to be on my journey. And then I kind of think I got lost from it a little bit, you know? Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was still always there, but it was like, okay, I'm not controlling. No, but the stories are still there, and those have a control over you, and those you are trying to control. And it's almost like, yeah, you reminded me again, like, oh, okay, so instead of trying to have control over the stories and the situation and all of the external environments, what if instead we could just get quiet, listen to what's alive inside of us, listen to that felt sense, right, or that witness, that inner witness, zoom out a little bit, separate yourself from those stories, and realize that you don't need control at that point. There's
Mm.
just that process in and itself brings you this level of like peace and clarity, and almost like this awareness and this stillness of like, it's going to be okay. You've
Mm.
you've actually got this. There's nothing for you to control. Maybe like today, you just need to go drink some water and take a shower.
Mhm. Mhm.
Sometimes it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be this big profound thing you need to do, you know?
Yeah. Mhm. How do I support myself in this moment?
In this moment.
And the part that usually needs the most recalibrating is the part where we give ourselves permission to do that because it doesn't feel big enough. It doesn't feel significant enough. It doesn't change enough, right? So it's like, no, that's not the thing. Well, learning how to give ourselves exactly the medicine that we need each day,
Yeah.
right? These small gestures is it's just so profound over time. And that permission piece is the hardest piece. So again, we're pumping iron. We are practicing
Yeah.
permission to do what is right for us and what will allow us to be the most supported so that we then can in turn show up in our lives from that place, right?
Yes.
Because a lot of times the obstacle that's in the way is, well, everybody else needs more care than me. Like, yeah, I'm, this is total mommy syndrome, right? It's just like everybody else, everybody else. And we've all heard it. We've all heard, you can't pour from an empty cup, but I don't know how much we have realized it. And that's kind of what you're saying is there's a difference between knowing something, hearing it over and over, and then the moments where it lands,
Yeah.
and I would say, let's take this opportunity to invite everyone, like, one of the obstacles I think people put between themselves and asking for the support they need is shaming themselves. I should already know. I do know what I need to do. I just have to do it. I'm just not disciplined enough. It's not that I'm missing any of the, the parts or the way. And I think that in my experience, like, I want things to be clean. Okay, I went through that. That was hard. I want to be done with that. Well, that's not how it works. Like
Mhm.
sometimes it's just like that was that layer. And when the time is right and the universe knows you're ready, you get the next layer. And if we stand there and we shame ourselves, like, I must have done something wrong. What's wrong with me? I thought I already did that, then we miss out. We miss out on the next layer of depth in that opportunity. And unfortunately, reinforce patterns of self shaming, which is so detrimental over time. So just a reminder to folks, like if you're feeling like you're shaming yourself into believing that you're okay, as opposed to trying something different, know that like stuff that's showing up for us, it is for us. It is not an indicator of failure. It is not an indicator that we just took a misstep or we forgot something. It's
Yeah.
the present moment opportunity. And that's all we really have, truly have, right? So yeah, let yourself check in and be honest. It's like, well, I think everybody else has greater needs than I do right now. Well, that's really interesting. But the only way to know that for sure is to have the clarity of mind and enough self-awareness to make that call for yourself.
Yeah.
So, if it's coming from your mind and your stories, then it's probably not truth-filled.
Yeah.
It's probably a projection, right? I'm a mom, therefore I do this, right? I'm a dad, therefore I do this. And it's like, oh, or this occasion, this moment might be asking you for something else. Are you listening? Are you tuning in? Right? And that's that autopilot disrupt, like you
Yeah.
said, autopilot.
Yeah, absolutely. We're too busy spinning all the plates and wearing all the hats and doing all the things that we don't even know to check in with ourselves. And then when we finally do, it's either quote unquote too late, and we're in damage control mode. Um, or we check in and we still have all the stories going on. So we're really not truly checking in to like what's alive inside of us. We're
Yeah.
still in the mind. We're still on that ego autopilot.
Yeah. I don't know what it is about this pattern of, it's just been coming toward me a lot lately. This pattern of people have it so much worse than me.
Mm,
I'm just going to put my head down and just like barrel through life because could be so much worse. And it's like, wow, like when I hear that now, the question comes to me, and I asked you this, Amanda, over and over, like, think about the people you love the most. And if you were witnessing them, your child, for example, and they were like, well, I'm suffering, but I know people suffer more than me. So I'm just going to suck it up and allow this to be the state that I live in. You would not go, okay, honey,
yeah,
suffering, a little suffering. You're right. Other people have it worse, right? So when we ourselves are stuck in that comparison trap, like we have to have a way to wake up and realize we're doing it, and how do we treat ourselves with that same care that we do our loved ones? You
yeah.
know, like why would you let yourself do something and over that you wouldn't let someone that you loved and cared deeply about do over and over, you know?
Absolutely. That was one of the practices you gave me, right? Like every time you, the self-love queen, checks in with all of your tribe, whether that be family, friends, clients, whatever, like turn that favor around on yourself. And it was like,
Yep.
oh, okay.
Where's your mirror? Did you drop your mirror somewhere?
Yeah, no, that bitch is in my pocket now. She's not going nowhere ever.
Yes.
Oh, that's
Yes.
so beautiful. Well, you almost already answered the last question that I had for you, and that was like, what is your biggest piece of advice for staying in your power, tuning into your body, and really just like staying home with yourself? Not even just like choosing to come back home to yourself over and over again. Um,
Yeah. I want to take a stab at it again.
Go for it.
I want to also give some props to one of my main mentors too in this process, because I know that a lot of my languaging is inspired by her. But Alana Warlop, who we can link in here somehow if we need to. She really helped me understand that when we seek change in our life, so anytime you know, we just we feel the stirring, things could be better, things could be different. When we choose a path of transformation, like the transformation happens from a foundation of self-love. This is one of the reasons that I have always been so thrilled to ally with you and in knowing the body of work that you've been investing in, as well as the community that's like coming towards you because of that body of work, because it's so important. When we choose transformation, I want my life to be different. I want this to be better, relationships, my career, my health, right? I'm going to invest in that. I'm going to make these changes. If we do not do that from a place of self-love, then whatever it is that we changed, right, is I mean, it'll just keep changing, right? It'll feel like maybe we're in charge for a little while and then wait, what happened? And it's not working anymore, because it can't live true sustainable transformation does not live in our lack. It does not live in our self-denial. So if I do not believe in the life that is meant for me, if I don't trust it and I don't welcome it because I know that I'm worthy and I know that it's mine, if I don't have that, it has nowhere to land. It has nowhere to make a home. And that's why it's not sustainable. I have to believe in the life that is meant for me in order to demand it and claim it. So we have to start there. And I think a lot of people want to bypass that piece because we have cultural suggestions that it's selfish. Self-love is selfish, right? Well, it's actually just alien to us. So let's give it a go. And then let's get back together in 6 months or a year. Does it still feel selfish? Does it still feel selfish to know thyself and to invest in thyself so we can pass that on to our communities, right? So I just, I think that the permission to be with yourself and invest in yourself is one of the most noble investments that I can imagine right now. So if that feels like it's missing for you, but you're trying to make a bunch of other changes, then I would say slow down. Slow down, come back home. And if you need support in coming back, so many ways to get that, to ask for that, to summon that. And they don't all have to be coaches and they don't all have to cost a bunch of money. Not anymore, you know? But do that for yourself. Your planet needs you.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. I said planet, so we can just end this right here.
Yes. Self-love is everything. That is key. You said it here, and I'm glad you reiterated it for me because I'm always saying it and I'll never stop saying it. And it's the freaking truth.
Yes, it sure is.
Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so honored that you chose to be here as my first guest. I can't wait to have you back already.
Sisterhood is the best. Let's do the sisterhood plug. If you don't have someone who feels like Amanda feels to me, then get you some.
Yeah.
Go out there and get you some. Put it at the top of the list. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the free support right there, right? You said it doesn't have to cost you any money. Like you get support no matter what it looks like. And sometimes it's from the most unlikely places on the corners of the world or the interwebs, right? It doesn't have to be your best friend that you've had for 20 years that when you call her up, she makes you feel like shit because she tries to give you advice that you don't want.
Yeah. And I mean, let's be real here. I'm a bit of a hermit. Like I take most of my advice from nature, and that's a little bit, a more palatable realm for me to do that from. But, let's really, like, it can be as simple as you wake up in the morning and you ask your source, you ask your spirit, you ask the universe, however you language this, doesn't matter. Name it. Ask for what you want more of or what you need more of. Let it be your 30-second prayer every day, right? Because it's like, it's such a why not, right? Like, why wake up every day like so aware of what we wish was different and we know could be different and should be different, and then to just literally go back through autopilot through every step of our day. Like, so let's ask for what we need, right? There isn't one way, there's your way, and your way will be revealed as it's happening. So anybody who tells you they know the way for you and is telling you that, okay, caution. And anytime you're telling yourself, well, I don't know what the way is, so therefore I'm going to stand still, you're forgetting. It will show itself. Ask and open to it. Open to your life. It's waiting for you. I promise. I promise.
And that wraps up part 2 of my interview with Lindsey Ruder, the journey of self-empowerment and self-discovery, and all of the beautiful ways in which she helped me really come back home to myself and shed all of the layers that did not serve me and all of the stories that I was telling that kept me stuck and stagnant, and really allowed for me to step into this integration process with grace and ease, walking away with a clear connection to myself and my power and my fullness. I am so grateful for my time that I spent with her. I am so grateful for her being on this journey with me and being a part of this podcast. I hope that her words landed deep within your soul. I hope that you go and give her a follow. You can find her on Facebook. You can find her on Instagram at Lindsey M. Ruder. You can also find her at redtent.org. And she also hosts sister circles at the Deer Creek Retreat in Dripping Springs, Texas. So check that out. You can check that out at deercreekretreat.com. I'm so excited for her to come back already. I absolutely love the conversations that we have together. I hope you enjoyed it as well. And until next time, I'll see you around.